You are not the problem. Your patterns are the problem. And as soon as you can make this mental reframe and this perspective shift, so much will start to change for you. You may think you're a procrastinator, when in reality, you're not. You just have this pattern you picked up of putting things off. There's a massive difference. And this is not just a play of words. This is a whole identity shift and perspective shift, and this entire mindset change that will change everything. What's going on, friends? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Dieting from the Inside Out, because like we all know, outer work without inner work doesn't work, and you have to diet from the inside out first before you diet for real. And if you're new around here, my name is Jared Hamilton. I appreciate you tuning into the episode. Now, in today's episode, I have a really cool one for you, because I'm going to show you the ultimate secret to stopping self-sabotage. So if you're the kind of person and you notice once you start, you can't stop, or it's like you do really well for a while, but then something always seems to happen and you end up gaining your weight back, or you end up right back to where you started, or you always end up getting in your own way, this episode is going to be powerful for you, because the whole premise behind today's episode is you are not the problem. Your patterns are the problem. It's the whole premise. And as soon as you can make this mental reframe and this perspective shift, so much will start to change for you. Because at the end of the day, there's so much, I would say, guilt and shame and judgment and struggle and all these other negative emotions underneath the idea of struggling, or underneath the idea of self-sabotage. Because I can tell you, when I was deep in the trenches of sabotaging myself and all this stuff, there was a lot of guilt for me. There's a lot of feelings of like, what's wrong with me? Why am I broken? What's going on? And the reality is, if you think you're the problem, your brain will never let it get fixed. Because if we get rid of the problem, that means we get rid of you. But at the end of the day, you're actually fine. It's your pattern that's the problem. And that's a lot easier to fix. And it gets rid of a lot of this internal shame and judgment and guilt and all these things, because you aren't the actual problem. It's the pattern that you picked up when you were little or from years ago. That's the problem. So, it's the equivalent of, in this world, like just taking your hat off, right? Like think about how like that would be, is imagine like your self-sabotaging is the equivalent of just taking a hat off. It's like, oh, I'm wearing this hat again, I should probably take it off. But imagine if you actually thought the hat was part of your head. Like imagine walking around thinking that like the hat that you're wearing, like a physical hat, is part of your head. You would have all this resistance to changing it. You would have all this resistance to like, no, I can't. It's part of who I am. I can't just let this go. I can't just take this body part off of me. But when in reality, it's like, oh, actually, it's just a hat I wear that I picked up somewhere. I can just take it off. Your sabotaging is the same way, because the problem is, most people listening to this that struggle, like maybe you actually think you are the problem. You think you're a perfectionist, when in reality, you just have a pattern of perfectionist tendencies. You actually think you're a binger, like it's in your DNA, whereas you just have a pattern of binge eating, right? Or you may think you're a procrastinator, when in reality, you're not. You just have this pattern you picked up of putting things off. There's a massive difference. And this is not just a play of words. This is a whole identity shift and perspective shift, and this entire mindset change that will change everything. Because the big piece behind dieting from the inside out, the concept behind this is, we have to fix what's internal. We have to fix your headspace, your identity, your belief systems, because everything else just goes on autopilot from there on out. So this is why, at the end of the day, you aren't the problem. You aren't. You're fine. I would dare I say you're perfect. It's your patterns that are the issue. If in anything, 9 times out of 10 that you could say, well, Jared, here's the issue, we could root it back to a pattern. Or if you go, well, no, I'm just this kind of person. Like, no. You think you're that kind of person, when in reality, it's just a pattern that's coming up for you. So that's what we're going to get into today. But I'm not just going to tell you about that. I'm going to actually unplug and show you how to unplug all of the patterns that are causing all these issues for you and wreaking havoc. And this is some of the stuff that I work on my highest level clients with, that I think will make a big difference for you. So, like I said, I'm just looking at my notes here. If you're watching the YouTube video, at the end of the day, you're not the problem. Your patterns are. Because I think I may have said it already. I learned this from Tony Robbins, is when I first heard this concept, is if you think you are the problem and then we get rid of the problem, that means we get rid of you. And your brain isn't going to let that happen, because your brain is all about self-preservation. Think about it. If you think you're the issue, if you're like, nope, me, Sarah, or whoever, just random name off the top of my head. If you think you, Sarah, are the problem, and then we start to get rid of the problem, that means we're exterminating you. and your brain only cares about self-preservation. So it's going to have to sabotage it. Right. But the magic is we can get rid of the problem, or get rid of the pattern, I should say, while keeping you. But a lot of this comes down to what you believe. So this is why you have to remember that your brain only cares about self-preservation. It's why your mind gravitates to what's most familiar, but specifically pulling out all means necessary to keep you safe and to protect you. So if you think, let's just take binge eating, for example. If you go, no, I'm a binger, you don't just binge eat, you're a binger. It's part of who you think you are. And then we put a strategy in place to get rid of the binge eating, but you're like, no, I'm a binger. Well, you're going to have a crisis, like literally an identity crisis, and going to find a way to sabotage that plan and binge eat again, right? Or it's like, let's say someone has the identity of, no, I'm not meant to be successful. I'm not meant to make money. I'm poor. I'm all these things. Well, what would happen if you were about to get a raise at your job, or you fell into some money, or you found the winning lottery ticket? Well, if your identity is, no, I'm poor and not deserving of abundance and wealth and success, well, you'll find a way to sabotage that, because it's death to that version of the identity of yourself. So we have to get clear on who you are and what your patterns are, okay? So like I said, I have a few of these just written down here to give more specifics. You aren't, like with the stuff that you're probably struggling with, you aren't a binger, you just have a pattern of binge eating. Big difference. Or these are the ones I've already mentioned. You're not a procrastinator, you just have a habit of putting things off, okay? You aren't a perfectionist, you have a pattern of waiting until things are perfect before starting or continuing on something, okay? You aren't an all or nothing person. You just have a pattern of all or nothing behavior when you struggle with something. That's it. It's not like imagine this. Imagine if I was actually convinced I was a car because I can make car noises. Like literally, like I drive, like at the time of recording this, I drive like a white sports car. But imagine if I went in my garage and I went vroom, 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 and just stood there and actually was convinced that I must be a car because I'm acting like a car. I'm acting like my car. Well, that would cause issues. I'm not. I'm Jared, but I'm acting like my car. It's no different for you. You're Sarah, you're Janet, you're Jack, you're whatever your name is. You're you, but you are just having this pattern come out of emotional eating, this pattern of hiding your emotions with food, this pattern of binge eating, this pattern of perfectionism, right? I hope you can feel the difference. Because as soon as I'm like working with someone on this and I say, hey, you aren't, that's not who you are. That's just a pattern you picked up from when you were little and you were defenseless and you didn't know any better. I literally can see the judgment and shame leave somebody. It's the coolest thing ever because it's a belief in perspective shift. Think about that. Think about all the things you identify with that you think you're the problem just because you did it. You binge eat consistently. So you're like, I must be a binger. You emotionally eat after bad days. So I must be an emotional eater. Or let's say you struggle with you losing your weight. So you're like, I must be destined to be fat. Whereas like, no, those are all just patterns you picked up somewhere. Patterns you picked up when you were a kid, patterns that you learned from your parents, patterns to keep you alive, patterns of what doesn't matter. But that's not who you are. You aren't the problem. Your pattern is the problem, okay? Now, like I said earlier, we can fix the pattern and keep you though. That's the magic. And that's how it'll stick because if, like I said before, if you think you're the problem and we get rid of the problem, we get rid of you and your brain won't have that. So we have to keep you because again, you're fine. You just have these patterns that's underlying that's going on. Because again, don't get confused what you do with who you are. I actually have it on my keychain. I got it from Kyle Cease at the last event of his I was at. It's a little keychain that says what you are is greater than what you do. That's my own little reminder. But I'm telling you right now, just like the whole sports car analogy, don't get confused what you do with who you are, right? You may struggle, but that doesn't mean struggle is part of who you are, right? You may have gained a bunch of weight, but that doesn't mean that's who you are. That's just something you did. Even if you binge eat every single day, you did not come out of the womb binge eating. It's not in your DNA. You just picked up the pattern of binge eating for whatever reason, whether you're restricting your food, whether it be something you learned from your parents or something you learned from childhood or what have you, or you're just hungry, right? Or we don't have the right plan in place. It's really more of a strategic thing. So don't get confused what you do or did with who you actually are. Because here's why this matters so much. You always default to who you are. Or I should say this, to who you are convinced you are. Okay, what I mean by that is the average adult is on autopilot, I think 85, 90% of the day, something like that. Whereas but the question is you're on autopilot to what, right? Like in a plane, an autopilot has to be set. Well, what is your autopilot setting to? It's your beliefs, your identity, your self-image, and the story you believe to be true about yourself, whether it's true or not. Right? Like you could, like, it's crazy. You have so much power. You have so much potential. You have so much capabilities and so many skills. But if you're convinced that like, no, I'm worthless, I'm not good enough, I'm not supposed to be successful, I'm a binger, your brain will just go bet and it will find a way to prove you right. It's how your brain works. Your brain is only about self-preservation, right? And you default to who you think you are in terms of your actions. This is why a lot of you listening will start a plan and start to do well, but then something magical seems to happen and you always find it back to where you started. Or this could go anywhere. You might start saving money, but then you find something always seems to happen, a big bill, a tax thing, or something happens and you find yourself back to your baseline of money. Or relationships. It's ironically, this applies to everything. You could literally take this pattern issue to literally any area in your life: money, business, success, friendships, relationships, weight loss, happiness. It doesn't matter. The whole thing applies. But at the end of the day, you have to know that you default on autopilot to who you believe you are. So if you believe you're worthless and not deserving of happiness, well, then no wonder you'll do well and be achieving for whatever it is you wanted, but then something will happen and all of a sudden you'll act in congruence with someone who isn't worthy or good enough or deserving of happiness. Right? It's how it works every time. If let's say a more weight loss analogy, if you're losing weight but you have this belief of I'm a binger, you may do well for a couple of weeks, but then you go on autopilot back to binge eating again. Right? It's the same kind of thing. So this is why you have to change the default. It's one of the first things that I do with clients is we have to get crystal clear on who they are. Because if who you are is made up of things that you don't like about yourself that you're trying to change, you will be on a forever uphill battle. Like if your identity is I'm fat and I will always be fat, and you're on a weight loss journey, God help you, because you're going to be in a constant state of sabotage, right? Or if you identify as a binge eater or an emotional eater, but you're trying to stop binging and emotional eating, but you're reinforcing how much of a binger you are, it's no wonder you're never going to get ahead. Get crystal clear who you are. But here's the thing. This isn't even in my notes. Get clear on who you are on your terms, not just stay who you are right now because you somehow got here. Very few people actually change their identities and choose who they want to be on purpose. Most people find themselves to wherever they're at right now, and then because they got here, they just go, well, I've been here for so long, I might as well not even change. I might as well just stay who I am. Well, that sounds like a really shitty life. Versus you have no reason nor you have zero responsibility to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago when you want to change your life. Like imagine a drug addict saying, well, I've been a drug addict for 20 years. I guess I better stay this way. But you would probably say, no, you literally can change now. Or if someone who was a terrible parent for their first kid, and then they had a second kid and they're like, well, I was a terrible parent to the first one, I might as well just keep going to my second one. You would probably say, no, you can be that person, that version of yourself for this next kid. It's no different for you now. I don't care if you've struggled your whole life. I don't care if you've binge eaten every day for the past decade. It doesn't matter. You have no responsibility to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. You literally can reinvent yourself anytime, any day. You really should, to be honest. But at the end of the day, this is why it's so important to audit who you are. This is why I have so much content on identity. It's one of the like I said, even in coaching in the collective, it's one of the first things that I teach people on how to fix. It is those things, because if we don't change your personal autopilot, it doesn't matter where you try to steer the plane to. It's always going to go back in course correct to the autopilot setting, which is who you think you are, not who you really are, who you think you are, right? Keep going. Sorry, I got a little bit off there, but I think it was important. All right, so let's get really strategic. How do we go about fixing or stopping these patterns that don't serve you? Right? You have these patterns. You have a pattern of binge eating. You have a pattern of all or nothing. You have a pattern of perfectionism, whatever the thing is. Or, excuse me, you may have a pattern of I lose motivation every 3 months, or I step on the scale and my pattern is to go, oh, fuck this, start over Monday and binge eat, right? It doesn't matter what the pattern is. Even if I haven't directly said what yours is, this goes for all patterns, okay? So I'm going to break this down into 6 steps. If you're taking notes, I hope you're writing these down. Step number one is be aware of the pattern. You have to become aware, crystal clear of the pattern. You cannot escape a jail you don't know you're trapped in, and you cannot hit a target you don't see. So whenever I'm working with someone, or like whenever I'm doing a call like in the collective about this stuff, is number one is, well, what's the pattern? What happens? Is it the pattern of you hide your emotions with food every time you have a bad day? When we emotionally eat, is the pattern you skip meals all day so you binge eat at night? Is the pattern you do really well and then you lose motivation, then you say fuck this and fall off? Is the pattern I don't know, let's say you do really well, but then you go on vacation and instead of getting right back on track as soon as vacation's over, you stay off for the next 3 months and then gain all your weight back? Is it the fact that you start to do really well, get unneeded attention from people, and then say, "Ooh, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this," and gain all the weight back? What's the pattern for you? Because the thing is, here's the cool part with sabotage. When it comes to subconscious self-sabotage, it has a paper trail. It is not random. I know it seems random. Sabotage feels random, but it is not. It is very pattern driven. I bet if you were to audit I'll just throw a big number out there, the last 10 years you've dieted and you've sabotaged, I bet you've done the same 5 to 6 things every single time, right? You were really aggressive with the way you approached it and you fell off, or you had you turned and flipped on this all or nothing switch when things weren't perfect, or the holidays came around like the time of recording this. And so you go, oh, I'm going to wait till start over in January. Be aware of the pattern. What is it? Get crystal clear, write it down, put it somewhere where you go, okay, here is the pattern that I'm going to work against. Okay. That's step 1. Step 2, know everything about this pattern, right? It's not that, oh yeah, I binge eat. It's, well, what is the pattern? When does it happen? How do you do the pattern? How is it triggered? What triggers it? You need to get really crystal clear about what everything is about this pattern. Like I have a client that just started with me the other day, and her big thing was binge eating. Well, there's a lot of different binges. For her, it turned out it was using food as an escape as well as restriction. Well, then we had a whole conversation around, when does that normally come out? It's when she feels these certain emotions, not all emotions, not necessarily stress and anxiety, but maybe more worry and lonely. Boom. Or when she's alone. Boom. Restriction is once we start, we can't stop. But not with all food, just with these 3 foods, right? So we got really crystal clear around everything about her patterns. So then we can put a framework in place to stop them. So for you, step 1 is be aware of the pattern. Step 2 is get really fucking clear on all the details about it and know everything about it. Literally be kind of weird about it. Know every single thing about this pattern, what it is, when it happens, how it's triggered, how you respond, how you feel, when it comes up. Get really clear on all of that because it's data you're going to need for number 3, which is step 3. Now we create the plan. I call this, if this, then what? Because here's the thing with all patterns. It's going to come around again. It's kind of like the old saying goes, wherever you go, there you are. So if you have a pattern of binge eating and emotional eating, you take that to every diet you try. Or if you have a pattern of feeling I'm not good enough, so then we stop doing the things that prove you're good enough. Well, it doesn't matter what plan you're on or what the goal is, you're going to take that part of you there. This is why sabotage always follows you. It's like a shadow until we do the work around it to rewrite these neural pathways and the actual patterns themselves and how you respond to them in your relationship with them. And that's when things change permanently. So step 3 is create the plan. So I call this in coaching, if this, then what? Do not wait till you are balls deep in the pattern that you're sabotaging to then decide, oh, what should I do now? You need to be crystal clear way before the pattern happens of what you're going to do when it hits. Here's the example I always give clients. Most people who have children have the sex, drugs, and peer pressure talk way before it's needed. If you're a parent watching this, think about it. When did you have the sex, drugs, and peer pressure talk with your kids? Probably before they needed it. Why? It's so they were prepared when it was time. You're like, the kids are going to tell you, probably during recess at school, behind the dumpster, they're going to tell you this. They're going to try to give you this. Then when you say this, they're probably going to say this. And you probably like mentally armed your kid with everything about the situation. It's because you know the situation is bound to come up. You know how it's going to come up, and you don't want your kid in that very emotionally heated moment making the yes or no decision. You want them making the decision way before the event starts or even gets there. You're no different. So if you have these 3 or 4 or 5, 6 patterns of sabotage for you in your weight loss or whatever you're doing, create the plan. If this, then what? So go back to that data you had from number 2, what the pattern is and all about it. And this goes for all the patterns, by the way. Create a little mini list, a little strategy list. If this, then what? If this happens, I lose motivation. Then what am I going to do? I'm going to show up unmotivated or whatever it is. Let's say you have the pattern of, if this happens, I have a really bad day at work and I want to go eat my face off in the pantry and binge like crazy. I'm going to journal and hold space for my emotions separately from food, right? Just create black and white plans, these little mini plans and strategies for when these things happen. If this, then what? If this, then what? If this, then what? Guys, this is one of the biggest things that I do with clients in coaching, whereas they're not the ones really having to think about, like, what do I do? I go, hey, cool. When you're triggered, I want you to do this. Hey, when you come home from work and you want to binge eat, I want you to do this, right? That's where I'm getting more strategic with them, but you can do the same work. You can do this too. Create the if this, then what list for all the ways you sabotage. Because again, there's only probably like 5 or 6. If this happens, the normal thing that you normally do, then what are you going to do? If this, then what? If this, then what? If this, then what? And that's it. That's simple. Okay. Number 4. Now it gets hard. So far, everything you've done has just been intellectual. What the pattern is, get to know it really well, create the if this, then what plans. Now we get into battle. Okay. Anticipate and execute. So it's not a matter of if sabotage tries. It's not a matter of if it happens. It is a matter of when. But the nice thing is, because of the data you had from number 2, you should be crystal freaking clear of when it happens, how it does, what it looks like, what it smells like, and how it's all going to go down. Okay. So anticipate and execute. Now, there's no reason to be anxious. There's no reason to be nervous. But when I say anticipate, is be ready. A motto I live by in so many areas in my life is stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I don't ever want to have well, you guys know at the time of like me recording this, I've got some really big goals in the world of like public speaking, right? I'm very open about, about wanting to close out stadiums and doing some crazy stuff. And it'll be pretty cool to look back on, it hasn't happened yet. And it'll be cool to look back, and I'm talking about it right now, and it'll be happening in real life. But I'm very open about that. But the concept of I stay ready so I don't have to get ready. I have literally been given other, not quite that big, obviously, but speaking engagement opportunities on a few hours notice. And it's cool with me because I always stay ready. I'm ready to give a TED Talk right now. I am ready to hop on any stage. I'm ready to hop on a plane and go to any arena in the United States and speak. Like I'm ready, right? Because I'm anticipating that, because I want it, and I don't want to go, oh shoot, that's next week. Okay, I need time. No, I'm so ready. It's not even funny. I was literally at an event I was attending about a year ago, and it was like a conference. And I was just attending. I was not speaking, but the speaker literally said, "Hey, Jared, I'm actually going to do this Q&A panel, and I'd love for you to be on it. Would you have time here in like a few hours to just hop up there and speak?" And I go, "Absolutely, 100%." It's because I stay ready for opportunity like this. So, but imagine if I had to go, oh, I don't know, let me think about it, and I'm not ready, I need to take time, I would have lost it. But I said, fuck yeah, let's roll. And I was ready. It's the same thing for you with sabotage. Stay ready. Know that like, hey, when you step on the scale, it's probably going to trigger you and you're going to want to quit. But guess what? You have a plan, you're not going to. Because here's the magic part of this. When you realize you're in a pattern and you step out of it and you're ready, you gain so much power over that pattern. If you don't realize you're in a pattern, you can't escape it. Hell, like I said at the beginning, if you think you are the pattern, you're fucked. You won't ever get out of it. That's why I said you're fine. It's your pattern that's the issue. You're perfect. It's the pattern that's the problem. Well, if you think you're the pattern or aren't aware you're doing it, how on earth can you stop it? But think about how much power that takes away from the pattern. If you go, okay, every time I step on the scale, I get upset. If the number's up, I want to quit. If the number's down, I get scared and I want to quit. Okay. Well, then when you step on the scale tomorrow morning, you're probably going to get triggered. So it's not going to surprise you. And you go, okay, I have a plan. As soon as I step on the scale, I'm going to get triggered. And then I'm going to go sit on the edge of my bed with a journal and going to write about my feelings and what's coming up for me. And I'm going to keep following the plan no matter how I feel. You just took away all of the power from that pattern. And then you know what's going to happen? You're going to do it tomorrow and you may not get triggered, or you'll get triggered. It will just be a little less than what you were thinking. It's because you already mapped this out. It's kind of like, what was that? It's the older movie with Eminem, the rapper. Is it 8 Mile? I think where It was a rap battle, and Eminem just literally like took away all the power from the guy that was going to trash talk him, because he said he literally changed his rap to taking all his jokes and talking so much shit about himself. And then at the end he said, tell me something I don't know about me. And the guy was like, fuck. You're doing the same thing, right? You're just becoming aware of what's going to happen, but you can do this for any single pattern. If you know you're going to get stressed at work and going to want to run to food, you can go, okay, well, tomorrow's going to be crazy. I know I'm going to want to run to food when I get emotional. So I'm going to anticipate when it's going to happen. I'm going to take a step aside. I'm going to go to the bathroom, do some breath work, journal about some of my emotions on the notes section of my phone, and get back to work. I'm telling you, when you have these little mini action plans, it's a game changer. So anticipate, though. Don't be dumb or ignorant to this. Anticipate, then execute the plan. Okay? Number 5, get back up when you fall. Because here's the truth. You're going to mess this up. No one is perfect. We aren't perfectionists here. Because remember, even if you think you are, you're not a perfectionist. You have a pattern of perfectionism when it's something you struggle with. You're not a perfectionist. If you look at every area in your house right now, I bet you have dishes in the sink, your floors aren't perfect, your hair's not perfectly manicured, your nails aren't done, and every single thing in your house doesn't look like it's ready to sell right now. You're not perfect. You're not a perfectionist. We just wave that flag whenever we're struggling with something. So with that being said, get back up as soon as you fail, or fall, I should say. Because when you are doing this sabotage work and you set these plans in place, you're going to fall down. You're going to experience something. You're going to go, fuck, I should have done better. I messed up here. It's okay. It's not about falling down. It's the speed at which you get back up. I'm telling you, you don't have to be perfect. But if your normal pattern is you fall off, stay off for a whole weekend or a week or two or a couple months, and you fall down and within about 6 seconds, you're back up making better decisions, you're one decision away from being back on track. You're one bite, one decision, one thought, one moment, one minuscule action from being back on track. You could have binged your face off and go, oh, I did it. All right, back on track right now. Literally, you could be off for like 60 seconds. Well, if your normal pattern is fall off and stay off for a while and you fall off and get back up, you're already rewriting that neurological work, the mental processes. So if you fall, or should I say when you fall, get back up as fast as you can, okay? And number six, be clear on the new identity. This kind of brings it full circle. Remember when I said at the beginning of this podcast that the way your brain works is, and your actions work, is it gravitates to what's most familiar and in alignment with who you think you are? Well, if you find yourself sabotaging a lot, there's a couple reasons for sabotage. One is it's just the pattern. Like if I've spent my whole life crossing my right arm over my left arm, it's just a pattern. It's just me doing that a million times. So if I'm trying to undo what arm goes on top. But the other piece to so much of sabotage, it's incongruence of who you believe you are. So if you believe you're a binger, you're going to find a way to binge eat. Those kind of things. So you need to be clear on who you actually are. And if you have not taken the time to, with some pen to paper, and get crystal clear on who you actually are, you really need to do that, because then that will be the new autopilot you sabotage to. But if your autopilot is fantastic, and if your new identity is so amazing, then it's not sabotaging. It actually pulls you up. Because here's the truth. Belief systems and identities can literally drag you down or pull you up. It's like the thermostat on a wall. It doesn't care, right? If you have a poor identity, like I'm not good enough, I'm a binger, I'm unworthy, well, you'll be doing well and it will drag you down to what you believe you are, which is way down there. But it also can pull you out of a slump, because like, for example, if you have the beliefs of, I always find a way to win, I'm destined for greatness, I'm supposed to be successful, I do have balance and moderation, I'm the kind of person that shows up for themselves, you'll go through a slump, like life will kick you in the teeth, but then you go, man, this isn't who I am. And it will pull you up. And it's one of the most tactical things you can do that no one talks about or does. Now, if you don't know how to set your identity and you're not quite sure how to go about that, we don't have enough time in this episode to do it, but I have extremely specific training, step-by-step modules and exact support for this kind of stuff inside my coaching group, The Collective. I'll leave the info in the description if you want to look into that. But it's one of the things I have a lot of frameworks on, because it's the first thing I teach in there as well. Even if someone's not doing one-on-one coaching with me and they're in The Collective, I have stuff in there for this exact thing. So if that's the case and you would like a little bit more specific help, you should join us in there and get access to all that. But I'll leave that in the description. Okay. Because here's the last part that I have this. Those are the 6, but you have to understand this. Every time the old pattern tries to come in and you don't give into it, you are rewriting that mental software. This is where resistance is required. Old patterns do not die hard, or do not die easy. They always go down hard. And every time the old pattern wants to set in and you don't give in, you are rewriting that. It's almost like if you're telling the dog to sit and it doesn't sit and you wait for it to sit. It might take a while, but the dog will eventually relent and sit. Right? Or if let's say you're taking your dog on a walk, but he wants to like bolt out the door. But if every time you go to grab the doorknob, he like goes to take off, you stop and you go, nope, sit. And you go to grab the doorknob and he starts to get antsy. You go, nope, sit. He'll eventually go, oh, I can't do my old pattern anymore and get what I want. And then you have a new dog. It's the same thing with you. You have to give you're rewriting your patterns patience and time and consistency, and not be quick fix mentality about mentality. I don't know if that's a word, and not have a quick fix mentality with this stuff. Okay. Cause here are things to know, and we'll wrap up. So a few things to know or remember when fixing your patterns and stopping sabotage is: number one, resisting a pattern will feel like pulling teeth. Quite literally. I don't think you like, let me just be abundantly clear. You are underestimating watching this, how hard it's going to be to undo a pattern or when you're resisting it. And I'm not saying that to be a cynic. I'm not saying that to sound like a Debbie Downer. I'm trying to get you ready for a metaphorical battle. Like, imagine this. If you've crossed your arms right over left for the last decade, and now I say you have to cross left over right, it is not going to be clean cut. It's going to have you're going to catch yourself a lot of you're like, okay, I'm going to cross left over right. And then like 3 minutes in, you'll have uncrossed and had no idea you did it. It's hard. It's hard work, especially though, when it's emotional. Crossing your arms and the other way, or learning to brush your teeth with your other hand, that stuff is not emotional or mental at all. It's just habitual. But a lot of your patterns that you're struggling with for watching this podcast episode aren't just habitual patterns of binge eating, habitual patterns of procrastination, habitual patterns of quitting. They are tied to your belief systems and emotions. So if you have always hid your emotions with food, feeling your emotions for the first time is going to be like, oh my gosh. Or if every time you hit about 3 months being consistent, then you get bored, lose motivation, and fall off, it's going to be like, it's going to literally feel like like a crazy relapse almost. You're going to get to this 3 month mark, and it's going to be like every fiber in you feels like it has to throw in the towel right now. Like I'm not trying to blow this out of proportion. I'm saying is resisting an old pattern is going to feel like pulling teeth. You have mental and emotional and habitual addictions. Again, I don't come on here to fearmonger or to say, oh, sugar's like cocaine or drugs. That's not it. But what is closer to these things is your emotional and habitual patterns. And they operate on autopilot because beliefs take a while to change sometimes. So I just want you to know that. Okay. Number two, expect every fiber in your being to not want to do it. Especially if your patterns are around like suppressing your emotions with food or with exercise or with being busy, or if you quit all the time or you start to lose consistency and all this, you're going to have, by the way, you're going to have like a lot of legitimate reasons for this stuff. Like if one of your patterns is you lose consistency around, let's say 8 weeks in, you're going to have legitimate things come up. It's not going to be like, oh, I know I should, but I just don't. It's going to be like Christmas is here. Friend got in a car accident. Your kid is sick. It's going to be the most legitimate stuff ever, but that's how sabotage works. So expect every fiber in you to want to go back to your old pattern, because again, remember what I said at the beginning of this, how your mind only cares about survival. Well, just realize that when you change patterns and beliefs specifically, your brain thinks you're going to die because it learned a lot of these patterns out of a survival state. Like you didn't know when you were a kid how to handle your parents' divorce. So you found emotional eating. Or let's say you learned your all or nothing mentality or perfectionism in school, so you didn't get screamed at when you went home. Well, like it's these kind of things where a lot of these patterns come out was from a place of self-preservation. So part of your brain believes if you let these patterns die, you'll die with them, right? So that's why there's all this resistance. Okay, it's kind of like the whole uncrossing your arms conversation. Understand also, it won't next. I don't even know what number I'm on. It won't be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. You don't have to be. You're going to probably want to come listen to this episode more than once. And I'm telling you, it is okay to not be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You are not a perfectionist. You have a pattern of wanting to be perfect so you don't get hurt. But understand, you don't have to be perfect to make progress. Okay. Next, you're going to catch yourself all the time in the middle of these programs and these patterns, and that's massive progress. One of my favorite things a client will do, like if I'm helping a client through binge eating, is they'll message me and they'll go, oh, Jared, I caught myself in the middle of a binge, but I was still binge eating. And I go, that's fucking fantastic because, before they would finish 3,000 or 4,000 calories and then go, oh, what did I do? But 2,000 calories in, they realize, I'm binge eating. That awareness is massive. That's a huge win. That's what I mean by this stuff is not clear cut. It's going to be messy, but it's how we win. Okay. And then lastly, you're going to feel like you're fighting an uphill battle because you are. You're literally undoing years and years and years of not just physical conditioning, but mental and emotional conditioning that's based in your own survival. It's okay. You're literally doing some of the most heroic, brave work that there is. And it will do nothing but make your life happier, help you live longer, experience more of your life, and be a better example to your family. So you are doing the most important work possible. So you should be proud of yourself. You should be it's okay to be a little bit nervous and like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But there's a reason you're here. There's a reason you're listening to this. You're literally meant to do some great things with your life. I don't want you to forget that. So, but that's why it's going to feel like you're going on an uphill battle because no one changes their life on an accident. That's how this works. Because at the end of the day, welcome to changing your life. That's what this is about. The reason you're listening to a podcast episode about stopping self-sabotage and understanding that how to change your patterns is because that's the only way to change your life. Because most people are completely going through life on autopilot, unaware of anything that they're doing and all the patterns that are not serving them. So you're the anomaly listening here going, I'm the kind of person who wants to change their life. I'm the kind of person who is willing to do this uncomfortable work for the betterment of myself and my family for the next several years because you deserve it. So that's what we're talking about here. Okay. That is it, my friends, for today's episode. Before we go, I do have some stuff for you. So number one, thank you for tuning in. It means the world to me. Out of all places on the internet, you're choosing to spend it here with me. So I have a lot in the description for you. Number one is if you have not gone through either my fat loss checklist or my 20-pound blueprint, I'll leave both of those down in the description below. I have the fat loss checklist is a full 5-day mini course showing you everything about fat loss and understanding how to change your perspective and making everything simple as fuck. Now, the 20-pound blueprint, though, is an actual guide. It's like a PDF, so it's not as long or big as like the mini course, but it's just like a downloadable. All this is completely free, by the way. It's just a downloadable guide that you can go straight to your phone, showing you step-by-step how to lose your next 20 pounds and keep it off without having to give up your favorite food or even feel like you're dieting. Okay, that's down there as well. And then I do also have all of the information. If you're listening to this and you go, man, I think I want a little bit more help with this. I might like to see about the possibility of working with Jared or his team in coaching, or maybe joining his coaching group, The Collective. I will leave all of that info down there as well for you. That way, if you want to apply or get on the wait list or even potentially see what it looks like to enroll, I'll leave all that down there below for you too. Otherwise, I wish you well. Thank you so much for being here. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I love the fuck out of you, and I will talk to you next time.